You know, Frederick Douglass, in his very beautiful autobiography, My Bondage, My Freedom, which I think Black Oak has a copy of too. Sit down. That title is important because there are 3 versions of his autobiographies out, and that's the most complete, and it's beautifully written. He talks about a slave master, and he talks about the cruelty and the inhumanity of this thing. I mean, he talks about it ferociously. I mean, he lived it, you know, he was a slave, and then he fled. And then he says a very interesting thing. He praises the slave master. He has some nice words to say about him. He says, still, this guy is a human being, and he has some qualities in there that were rather exceptional as a person. I mean, it's a remarkable thing for a slave to get up. And it's not because Douglass has so much love in his heart for everyone who's human, he just wants to be there. Douglass had hate in his heart. He hated it. He hated this thing, and it comes out in those pages, burning. And there'd be something wrong. There is something wrong with people who cannot hate that which is hateful and harmful to human beings. And to deny that and say, well, we mustn't, well, you don't want them to judge you, but why are you judging the Nazis so harshly? You know, that's what they were doing their thing, or the Ku Klux Klan, or whatever. And still he makes these statements, and he says, you know, this guy would not be so bad if he were living in a society where where his impulses would have to be mediated by the normal restraints of society. His empowering impulses, his moods would not be so brittle. They would not be so peremptory. He would not be lashing out. He would not be where he is. The slave master. He could have been a decent man with some capabilities and social virtues if he had been in a decent system. So Douglass's interest is not in denouncing the slave master, it's denouncing the system that develops the slave master. It's denouncing, that's what a radical analysis is going to the core. Denouncing the system that develops and necessitates these kind of militaries and these tanks and these murderous forays all over the world against people who never asked anybody to come in here, as we just see it happening in Somalia now. They never asked you in. They were hungry, and they were demoralized because they've been facing generations of colonialism. They're in that situation because you have already been there several times over, plundering that country. They never asked you to come for, quote, help. You went in when you discovered oil in Somalia. It was an amazing exercise in sociology. He was doing good sociology. He was thinking systemically about what produces this thing. Now, the media teaches you not to think systemically. It teaches you to look at each thing as a little fragment thing. What's in today's news? What's yesterday's news? What's tomorrow's news? What is that? How does that feel about that? Little scattered fragment bits here, none of which are related, unless they want to make certain kinds of relations, you know. They make certain kinds of links that serve their purpose. Very rarely.